Hey guys, welcome to BP, the Bible Perspective. Welcome to part 8 of Never Bring Ignorance to a Debate, dissecting the Larry Elder's interview on the Breakfast Club. Now, before we get into it, please like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comments section below. All comments are welcome. Now, this will be our last dissecting or taking it apart, the interview. Only because a lot of some of the other issues that he covers in the interview I'm not that interested in, such as his platform for presidency. One, I don't think he's going to win, and I don't think he's even going to have enough support that someone will offer him a seat at the table, vice presidency, position in the cabinet. I just don't think it's going to happen for Larry. My purpose, of course, for dissecting this interview is to show how, unfortunately, people allow people like Larry Elders to spew out talking points without necessarily challenging him or challenging the talking points. And with just a simple Google search, you can refute a lot of his stats, or you can at least be able to see how he cleverly crafts his argument, how he takes advantage of not putting a lot of numbers into proper context in order to frame his point of view, which is a conservative point of view. But it's even worse than that. Not only is it a conservative point of view, but Larry's whole position, he has spent his whole career in defending the white culture and deflecting from the guilt of the white culture. Now, I say that purposely because in all of his stats and what he does, you have to keep this in mind. He mostly speaks to white audience. So his appearance on the Breakfast Club is rare that he would speak on to a black audience. Okay. Now there are other black platforms that he could speak on, and I'm not sure if he gets invited and turns them down, or if these platforms are not inviting him. But you would see that in the rare occasions when he does appear, that anyone that has done their homework can easily dismantle his talking points. Okay, easily. And I'm doing it with a simple Google search. Now, let me just say this too. There are a lot of people that respond in the comments, but they never respond. They may call me ignorant, they may call me dumb, they may call me this, but they never actually respond citing any of the talking points, how I'm wrong, how he's right, vice versa. And that kind of shows you. This is the genius of how Larry crafts his argument. As I said, he mostly speaks to white people. And then he mostly speaks to white people about how bad black people are, the flaws of black people, while deflecting from the guilt of white people. So let's pick it up. And I said there's a couple of points I want to kind of focus on, and that is his take on slavery and a couple of other things. So here we go. Now, let me just say this before we go. He's on the Breakfast Club, and remember, this is you're looking at Charlemagne the God and DJ Envy, and this is their show. They're the hosts, and they are an urban kind of an entertainment radio show that kind of deals with more urban hip hop celebrities, things like that. Okay, the lady on the right, her name is Tesla Figueroa, they bring her on for more of the commentary, the news analysis to give insight on you know, news, like I say, news analysis, topics, political topics like that. Um, I think, and as I said before, if I had to rate her, she didn't do as good as she should have done, and which I think she could have done. That there were a lot of talking points that they did not address with Larry because they are focused on making other points. And I think the other points that they're making are just not that relevant, okay, or as important to some of the talking points that he's spewing out. But that's why I say never bring ignorance to a debate. Okay, if you're going to invite someone on your show and have them kind of give their point of view, I certainly think you should do your homework to kind of understand where they're coming from. And I think this is where the Breakfast Club failed at. It's not that Larry was that good. As I said, a simple Google search could dismantle a lot of his talking points, a lot of the way he uh, uh, doesn't apply proper context to pretty much anything he's saying. Okay, and so let's get into it here. Let's bring it back up, and then you can see what I mean.
You still have choices. It's just much more difficult to raise a child on your own. Even Tupac Shakur said, "I know for a fact." Tupac, excuse me. I know for a fact. Had I had a father, I would have been more confident. I would have been more disciplined. End of quote.
Well, how did all
Now, this is kind of interesting to me that he's bringing up Tupac. Tupac, remember, was successful. He was a millionaire. Now, while I understand what Larry is saying, there's no correlation to say that his father would have made Tupac a better person. And let me just say, look at Donald Trump, who was raised in a two-parent home. Look at how he turned out. Now, I'm not going to get into Larry's position. This is one of the things I'm skipping, is that later on in this interview, he's really going to kind of proclaim Trump's innocent. He doesn't believe that Trump did anything wrong. Okay, that's why I'm not going to deal with that point. But if you just look at over his life, Donald Trump is a failed businessman. He's been accused of multiple sexual abuse, rape, fraud. Okay, so, and this is, remember, coming from a two-parent home. He's paid out. This is stuff that he's paid out for. He's paid porn stars, right? Settled cases. He's settled fraud cases. His own charity, veterans charity, he paid money out. He paid it, okay? So just a mere fact, Tupac was one of the most famous rappers during the 90s. He was a million, or he felt like he was successful. Millionaire could be questionable, but that's due to how death row treated him. But here's my point: the fact that he had a father, you know, doesn't prove anything that he would have been a better person. All right.
those white men end up in jail when they still had fathers? The Trumps and the Giuliani. I'm just asking the question. Like, how did they end up in jail?
Because some people commit crimes.
No, sir. Stop. My apologies for interrupting you earlier. I just couldn't stomach the answer that I knew you were going to say.
Couldn't stomach the answer?
Yeah, I couldn't stomach, because your actual answer to Trump being what was happening to him with the indictments, you actually said that the system was doing it. You said there was a two-tier system. This is your words.
That's right.
That it was a two-tier system. So when it came to Trump, all of a sudden you now believe in this systematic thing that's happening to Trump. But then when it happens to black people,
but it's not about race. It's not about race.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you. Remember, I made it easy for you, and I took race out of it. Remember, I said I'm just talking about the system. I'm just talking about the system.
If you want to ask me whether I believe Donald Trump is being treated the same way as Joe Biden and is being treated the same way as Hillary Clinton, all of these people are white. All these people are white. There's a double standard.
Well,
Mr. Elder, you didn't hear my question.
You said that
you didn't hear my question.
You said some people commit crimes, so you do believe that Trump, Giuliani, them, they committed a crime.
I don't know.
But you just said some people.
Okay, so again, I'm not. I don't want to I'll probably let it play, but I'm not going to linger too much into his proclaiming that Trump is innocent. But you also notice that they should have let him held him more to answering again his double standard, that what they brought up about the system. He claims that there is no systematic racism, but then he's going to say that the system is doing Trump wrong. All right, here we go.
Commit crimes.
I said some people committed crime. I didn't say Donald Trump committed a crime. If you ask me specifically whether I believe Donald Trump committed a crime, I don't. I don't.
Specifically about those people and why they ended up in jail, and they all got fathers.
Well, Donald Trump is not in jail.
Oh, he got indicted.
Yeah, he got indicted. That's a far
Mincing words, but okay.
cry from being in jail.
Why did he get indicted?
Well, he got arrested, is what I'm saying. He's going to get arrested.
He's been arrested. He got indicted, in my opinion, because the DOJ has a double standard. They let Hillary pass, for example. She clearly violated the Espionage Act by having an unsecured server in her basement. She paid for the Steele dossier. She destroyed 30,000 emails that were under subpoena, and she got a wrist slap. And Donald Trump is now being indicted, I think, for the fourth time. It's unfair.
Right.
So let's stop. So why didn't Trump, when he was in office for 4 years, indict Hillary Clinton? He had 4 years to do it. In fact, Donald Trump had 4 years to do a lot of things that should have been in the favor of the conservative platform. So why didn't he indict Hillary? He was in control of the DOJ. Certainly, Barr was his lapdog. Okay. Okay.
Right. Black people been telling y'all how corrupt the FBI is for a long time.
And the FBI has been corrupt. There was COINTEL, the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover also wiretapped MLK under Robert Kennedy, a Democrat Attorney General, Malcolm X. Lots of things. Right. And I find it interesting how the same people who criticize the FBI historically are now defending the FBI because they're going after Donald Trump.
Oh, we're not defending the FBI.
I didn't say you were. I said some of the same people.
We're just looking and saying, damn, finally.
But what's your thoughts with Florida? And you see that they're trying to take our history out of these history books and not trying to teach our history. What's your thoughts?
I find it interesting that the Democrats are the ones complaining about Florida. This is a party of slavery, party of Jim Crow, the party of the KKK, the party of the Southern Manifesto, the party of Dred Scott, the party that I said earlier destroyed the nuclear intact family, and the party that is opposing school choice. And now they want to lecture Florida on making sure the proper history of slavery is taught. I don't know.
Well, watch the double talk. Watch the double standard. So what relevance does his answer have? Okay, so let's say if the Democrats said we were wrong for that, and here's what we're saying, here is the truth. There's another issue when he says that the Democrats, who was the party of slavery, this is, again, an age-old conservative talking point, a Republican talking point. What they don't tell you is that what happened in the 60s when you had the civil rights bills passed ending slavery. So all of those racist white Democrats, where did they go? Or did they not jump to the Republican Party? And then when you fast forward to Nixon's Southern strategy, what was that strategy? Getting those disgruntled white or ex-white Democrats to jump ship. So when we look at the Republican Party today, who are the Republican parties? And are they not the seeds of the Dixiecrats of the past? Okay? In other words, if you look at the Republican Party today and compare them to the Dixiecrats of yesteryear, the ideologies are the same. They vote the same. And as I said, this is why both Nixon, Reagan, and then also Trump exploited the disgruntled white votes. Okay?
I don't know anybody who's defending slavery. Anybody.
What Ron
Ron
DeSantis
DeSantis. He's not
said people benefited from slavery.
Actually, you're talking about one
Well,
line.
actually,
You're talking
On that one line, again, I think it's a kind of, yes, there was some kind of teeth to it. I don't. When I say teeth, let me kind of correct myself. I do. It was one line when it just reflected the callousness to me of of those who implemented these policies. The fact that you had Florida, um, just that was again changing the way slavery is taught. And so one of the ways that they were trying to do that is by saying that blacks benefited from slavery. Again, deflecting from the guilt of slavery. Now, in fairness, they did talk about, at least mention, at the very least, an honorable mention, how that slavery was bad. Okay. Okay, let's go on.
about
Actually,
one
there
line
is
in about
somebody.
127 pages of the study, and it is a line that was repeated almost verbatim in the associated in the advanced placement African American course that the DeSantis administration refused to use because of all of the sexual stuff that was in it. It's basically the
Well,
same
sir,
thing that was in the advanced placement African American courses, and now because it's in that, all of a sudden the governor is accused of somehow defending slavery. He's not doing anything of the sort.
What did you think
well,
about that
sir,
line?
you were actually one that defended slavery. In your comments, you said that, like it or not, slavery was legal
It
in a
was.
response to reparations. So it's you that was defending slavery, correct?
Defending it and saying that it's illegal are two very different things.
Well,
Slavery,
that was your response.
slavery,
Well, that was
unfortunately.
your response. That was your response into if reparations should should happen. So your response to that was, like it or not, slavery was legal, and one would think that that was a defense on those who were asking.
Well, you would
for
think it was a
reparations.
defense, but it is not a defense.
Well, again, missing words because you were saying something to get a point over, and it was to deflect from the horror and the evils of American slavery, and that's the key. Now listen carefully. This is why I'm going through this part because I certainly want to address what he's getting ready to say next.
Unfortunately, slavery has been part and parcel of human history from the very beginning. Asians enslaved Asians, whites enslaved whites, blacks enslaved blacks, Native Americans enslaved Native Americans. This is a culture, the Western civilization, that had a revulsion against it. We had a civil war against it. And we ought to applaud ourselves for doing something about this.
Okay, so let me, first and foremost, again, another age-old Republican/conservative talking point. Everybody did it. Well, that's true. Everybody did it. All races of people throughout all periods of time have engaged in slavery. Okay, so that makes it wrong. It makes it evil. The reason why he's saying this is to deflect from the horrors of American slavery. So basically, by saying this, you are not elevating the American exceptionalism. You are actually saying that America is no better and just as same as the pagans, just as bad as the evil other nations. But let's examine something here. America is the only nation, okay, the only nation that proclaim God and freedom in the same sentence, with the same ideology. So what makes America, or should have made America, different is its claim that all men are created equal and have inalienable rights given to them by their creator. And America defaulted on that. They were the most and the worst hypocrites. No other nation proclaimed that. No other nation made that promise. But America did. And then in this very same sentence, as they were writing the sentence, some of the founding fathers, the drafters of the constitutions, owned slaves. This is what Larry is deflecting from. Who cares about what other nations are doing? America was supposed to be better. They said they were better, and yet they were no different.
This is a flawed country. It's moving forward. It's becoming more perfect all the time. Today,
when he says more perfect, that's debatable. And I don't know. I think the time clock is going to run out because 85% of its history, when he says that America and the slash white Europeans into slavery, remember, America fought the bloodiest war that cost more American lives over issue. In other words, keep this in mind. There were a lot of people who fought to end slavery, but there were the equal amount of people who fought to keep it. And then after slavery, let's not forget the era of Jim Crow. So the boast here of the greatness of America is flawed due to their hypocrisy. And this is what Larry is deflecting from.
if you are born and raised in America, if you finish high school, presumably one where you can read, write, and computer grade level, which is why I support school choice, don't have a kid before you're 20, get married first, get a job, keep a job, don't quit it until you get another job, and avoid the criminal justice system, you will not be poor. And if you don't...
Okay, that's, again, another talking point that is just plain stupid. The crash in the 2000s, when you think about the end of the Bush administration, when you think about the policies of corporate America, the policies of the Bush administration that brought us on the brink of financial collapse, how did those families fare out? And I could tell you during that time, you had people who had master's degrees that were trying to get jobs at McDonald's with master's degrees because there were no other jobs. That the economy was hit hard. So when he says you will not be poor, that's relative. Now, at the same time, I will say, yes, it is also correct, but it is also wrong. But you can't have that just as the standard, because basically what he is saying is that black people don't do this. But then at the same time, if you say, well, white people are doing this, and he's not, again, he's deflecting from white people, look at rural white America. Go through the Appalachians, go through Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa, all of the rural cities of the South, and you see a different white America than the one that a lot of the Republicans, and by the way, a lot of the Republicans who live, excuse me, a lot of the white Americans who live in these democratically run cities. In other words, you think about like a person like Larry, who's a conservative, and a lot of Republicans certainly live in and around these Republican areas, like the big cities, okay, like Los Angeles, where he lives at, San Francisco, Sacramento, San Diego. You go across the nation, right? And the big cities, Las Vegas, Denver, Albuquerque, Denver, okay, Des Moines, Chicago, Memphis, St. Louis, coming around, swinging around, Atlanta, Miami, Charlotte, New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Boston, right? Now, these are areas, by the way, that have heavily Democratic cities that he's going to criticize, but yet look how many Republicans live in and around them. In other words, why is it and how is it that like a person like Larry has his livelihood living in a Democratic city? Just saying.
Follow that formula, there's a good chance you will be.
You know, the first GOP debate is coming up, and you didn't qualify, and I saw you right.
Well, you didn't say.
All right, I'm going to scroll through because there's a couple of things I want to get to here, and like I say, some of the part I'm not, excuse me, I'm not interested in. So let me scroll through. Here we go.
My mission to rescue the Golden State and save the nation. It's about the one-party rule in California. California has supermajorities of Democrats in the Senate and in the House. And as a result, our schools are near the bottom. People are leaving California for the very first time. We have the highest state income tax in the country. The average price of a home in California costs 175% above the national average, all because of these left-wing policies that are hurting the very people, black and brown people living in the inner city, that people on the left claim that they care about.
Do you think slavery is...
Now, the only thing I'm going to say is this, is then why aren't the Republicans presenting a Republican ran, a Republican utopia? Excuse me. In other words, tell me why Republicans, as I just mentioned, Larry lives in a Democratic city. Why isn't Larry living in a Republican ran city? For example, what are the Republican ran cities in in California? Why aren't there Republican, uh, raising up these utopias? Texas is a Republican state, right? They have a good job market. However, when you look at the economy of Texas, remember a couple of years ago, not only a couple of years ago, but last couple of winters, they've had real bad winters because of their infrastructure. Texas utility grid, the electric grid, is separate than the rest of the nation. And remember, this is ran by Republicans, and you had those cold spells where nearly all the state was wiped out in terms of their electric. Here's my point. Where are the Republican ran utopias? And then wouldn't you think that Larry would flock to them? Larry and other conservatives would flock to them. Here we go.
Self-inflicted? Or do you think Jim Crow segregation was self-inflicted? Or do you think,
slavery was self-inflicted? Of course, it wasn't self-inflicted, but there are a lot of people have bloody hands in slavery. Mm-hmm. For example, slavery could not have existed had it not been for African chieftains who were selling black slaves captured in battle or captured through raids and selling them to European and Arab slavers. It could not have existed without that. So everybody has dirty hands here. That's why reparations is such a foolish thing. If you're going to get reparations from the 5% or so of white people that have some sort of generational connection to slavery, and that's all there is, then you need to go back to Africa and get money from African countries that were involved in the slave trade and in the Arab slave trade. And by the way, the Arab slave trade was even worse than the European slave trade. 90% rate of attrition, often making men and women walk on barefoot across the Sahara, and the men were castrated. Only about five.
So I think, Larry, that's a poor comparison to try to compare slavery evils and horrors, because what you note in all of what Larry just said, he never once mentioned, labeled, listed, or talked about what white America did. And I'll say this again. While the comparison, yes, slavery is evil. You even have slavery today. And this notion that he says, and this is, again, just plain foolish, where he says, well, why don't we go to Africa and exact reparations? Well, how are you going to do that, Larry? America has no jurisdiction, no control, right? No authority over the Africans, right? But we do have control over America, don't we? And when you talk about reparations, the issue of reparations is solely this. Was there a wrong committed? And then who committed the wrong? So you get back to the who was the oppressed versus who was the oppressors. And do you hold the oppressors accountable? And how do you do that? Through legal means. That's where reparations come in at. But this idea then that, if you notice, Larry is not talking about, if you're going to criticize, and he does. So this is again, deception. Larry took the time to label, to characterize just how bad everyone else slavery was, and yet he never characterized how bad America slavery was. And as I said, America is the worst hypocrites because they claim to be on a higher moral platform. They claim to be Christians. And yet, why aren't you then criticizing how white Americans bought slaves? For example, if I go to Thailand and I think it is something despicable where it is widely known you got these old perverts who can go to Thailand and get 13, 12-year-old prostitutes and all that. Well, here's my thing. Thailand is a despicable nation then for allowing that. But what about the men who are going there? They're just as despicable. They should have a show like that old Chris Hansen show, To Catch a Predator. Well, America, white Christian America, who claim to love Jesus, went and bought people. They didn't Christianize people. They didn't preach the gospel to them. They bought people whom Jesus loved, whom Jesus died for. They bought them and transported them back to America and treated them as animals. Treated them as animals. And yet you take the time to characterize how evil and how bad those people are across the pond, but not the people who bought them. And even though I think it's around 1825 that they outlawed the import of slaves, but they allowed white slave owners to breed, to keep their slaves, breed them, and breed other slaves, people who were born on this nation, rob them of their American natural born rights. See, that we can go on, and this is why you see conservatives deflecting from the horrors and the evil of what America did. This is Larry's job. This is his commitment to deflect from how the evil white people were. And again, let me also say this, not all white people. Larry makes a statement that, and I agree with this 100%, and I want to make sure that slavery could not have ended without the good God-fearing white people who fought against it. Okay, so let's be clear on that.
If they go after the money from the other countries, then would you agree that it would be okay to go after the money from America? Is that your problem with it?
When are you going to stop with this? Everybody has a grievance.
I just asked a simple question.
Okay, you said everybody have a grievance. But first of all, you stop with this when you make the wrong right. In other words, if a institution commits wrong, and it doesn't matter how long it is wrong, you have to make it right. Now, Larry mentioned Christian principles. I don't think he's a Christian, but he mentioned Christian principles. Does God say that we should ignore the wrong that was done to a group of people? Does God say that?
I'm answering your question. There's no end. There'll be no end to this because slavery has been part of human history from the very beginning. We'll be getting money.
And again, we're not talking about human history. We're not talking about other nations. We're talking about what went on in this nation of America, okay, and how America mistreated horribly its natural born citizens.
Let you talk, sir. I've let you talk, and every time I talk, you begin to talk, and then you say, "Let you finish." So I asked you a very simple question. You said, "If you're going to go after it in America, go after it in Africa." So if we all agree to go after it in Africa, will you then agree to go after it in America? It's just a simple question. Yes or no?
No, I won't because it's a waste of time. We ought to be spending our time on education.
So right here, this is why I think Teslan's approach failed, because he was never going to agree with that. There are people that are so callous that even if America said, okay, let's end this reparations, and we're going to give every African American 1 penny of reparations, there will be people like Larry who will oppose it just simply out of hate. That's all. They would oppose it because of the callousness of their heart and simply out of hate. It doesn't matter to them. And this is the thing, it doesn't matter to them. All right.
Question.
Okay, you told me that I cut you off. Then I tried to answer your question. You won't let me finish.
Go ahead, Larry.
Thank you. It's a waste of time. We ought to be talking about working hard, investing in ourselves. Right now, as we speak, there are Haitians in Haiti lining up for a lottery to come into this country. Why? Because
now he should talk about then how the immigrations treat Haitians. By the way, they don't let them come in. One of the problems with especially Haitians, they're turned away. So Larry's not again. How he parses he uses how he try to use his talking points, but yet at the same time he's not talking about justice.
it is the land of the free.
I meant to say justice for the Haitians, okay?
And the home of the brave. You can go from nothing to something faster in America than any other country in all of human history. We ought to be talking about that. Let me just.
Actually, that's not true. That's not true. There are a lot of prospering nations. There are a lot of nations that people do well in. Okay, so America is not the only one. And again, keep in mind, while that's true for some people, remember America for 85% of its history persecuted its Black African or African American naturally born citizens. 85% of its history.
One more point. 1997, Time Magazine and CNN hooked up together to do a poll on what Black teenagers and white teenagers felt about race.
Okay, I'm going to skip past this because there's one other part I want to get to before I go out. Let me see here. Where am I here? Oh. 30. Let's see here. Right around.
You and the system not wanting to be accountable for a system that Black people are not in charge of, by the way, of not wanting to hold both sides accountable when it comes to the system.
Do I believe Hillary was treated differently and Joe Biden treated differently than Donald Trump is being treated? Yes, I do. Is that an indictment about whether or not America is systemically racist? No, it is not. Those are two totally different things. Yes,
you're trying to merge the two, but they're two totally different things.
I agree with you. They're two different things. We're agreeing. We're agreeing. They're two different things. We're agreeing.
No, we're agreeing to two different things. We're not agreeing that there's not systematic racism because we're not in charge of the system, sir. In case you
okay, all right.
So she's going to get on this point about, and again, it was hard to say why was she making this point of terms of the system, and I'm probably going to end up cutting here because I'm kind of running out of time here. Her point was that we're not in charge of the system, and he's going to bring up the issue of look at all of the democratic cities who are ran by Black people. If you go to Baltimore, Washington D.C., Atlanta, for example, pretty much almost all the government is ran by Black people. So the mayors, the prosecutors. So when she says the system, she never kind of defines the system. She never defines what the system is. So I don't know what her point is. That's why I said it. Anyway, let's go.
All right,
Black people have never been in charge of any system.
Well, actually, we have been. Take Baltimore.
No, we've never been in charge of
any
system.
May I finish?
Tell me, what financial system are Black people in charge of? What healthcare system are Black people in charge of? What government system are Black people in charge of?
I'm about ready to tell you.
What prison system are Black people in charge?
I'm about ready to tell you.
I'm not talking about.
They are in charge of plenty of them, and that's what I'm saying. I don't understand her point here because they are in charge of plenty of systems. Here's the question. What do Black people do when they are in charge of these systems? So if you go back to Barack Obama, he was in charge literally of the nation, right? Then you had his Attorney General, right? Eric Holder. He ran the top of law enforcement agent. So we could go on and on and on about Black people who have always been in charge of things. There are Black people in charge of school boards, school systems. In Atlanta, remember a few years back, the one who's indicting Trump right now indicted several Black school boards for falsifying test scores, right? And they went to jail for that. But my point is, they were in charge. So we can go on and on with this discussion. All right, guys, you know what? I'm kind of out of time, and I think I've talked about a couple of things here. I talked about a couple of things here. Uh, and I think I made the point enough to say never bring ignorance to a debate. Okay. A lot of the talking points from people, and basically on both sides, sometimes if you listen to them, you can certainly refute them. But that's okay. That is my perspective. Again, love to hear your comments. Love to hear your thoughts. Add them to the comments section below. And again, I do welcome all comments. And don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. Look, the next time I see you then,